Welcome to Tampa Home Talk with your host, native Tampa real estate girl, Katrina Madewell, a full-time, passionate, out-of-the-box thinker, love for home ownership kind of realtor with over 21 years of combined mortgage and real estate experience. Tune in every week at this time for expert advice on everything you need to know about home ownership, finance, maintaining great credit, building wealth, and making your everyday life better, and how you can be financially successful today and tomorrow. Remember, love where you live or let Katrina fix it. Now, here's your host of Tampa Home Talk, Katrina Madewell.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today for Tampa Home Talk. You can catch us here every Thursday and Saturday at 5 p.m. We also want to leave you our off-air number in case you have any questions or you want to connect with some of our guests, 813-377-2775. You're listening to Tampa Home Talk on the Real Estate Radio Network, 813-377-2775. We have a great show lined up to you today. I could hardly wait to bring it to you. This is going to answer a lot of those questions that we get every single day about condos. And so we have a lot of buyers that many times will be first-time home buyers, and they will ask us about condos, and they'll want to know how those compare to single-family homes, how those compare to townhomes. And there's some huge differences from the financing side alone, and we're going to dive into some of those things today. We're going to also talk about inspections, and we have a little bit of an insight from a community association manager or a CAM. So our guests for today's show are going to be Paul Carraro with International Realty Plus Tampa Bay. CAM manager, also has a lot of experience in managing HOAs and that whole process, and the fees and the funds and everything that goes behind the HOA in a condo type community. We also have in studio today our show partners, SEC Inspections, Melissa Rogers and Dan Menikheim, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
And so they're going to highlight some of the things that they see also from an inspection point of view with condos. Because sometimes we get people say, oh, it's just a condo. Do I really need an inspection? Like everything's covered by the outside of the HOA. So I don't, it's probably, I don't need an inspection, do I? And of course, we always have to say, yes, you need an inspection every single time. So we're going to dive into some of those things. We also have the top 5 questions that Paul gets as a CAM or community association manager all the time. And some of those are very relevant. You'll want to stick around for those and definitely catch the show in its entirety. If you're in and out of the car and you miss any part of today's show, you can catch us on the web, on Facebook, Twitter, and across the board at Tampa Home Talk, tampahometalk.com. Welcome to the show today, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
I'm glad to have you guys. Paul, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So, Dan, I'll let you kick things off since you're the one in the field, right? We see you all the time, and we get this question. Our answer is always yes, even on a brand new home. We like to tell people, yes, you need to get that home inspection because there's things that get missed even on a brand new home. So, do you want to talk about from a condo perspective, because it's obviously different, right? You're not inspecting a pool. You're not inspecting some other elements that you might have in a single family home. So if you were to talk about a home inspection from a condo perspective and how that differs from single family, what would you say?
Well, it probably differs in people's perception because everything that will find on a single family home, I also find in a condo, from roof leaks to mold to electric panel boxes that are dangerous, to air conditioning systems that don't work, plumbing that needs to be repaired. It's actually it's the same amount of issues I find in a condo I'll find in a single family home. And I think the biggest thing is the perception of that, because I think some people find that the association covers everything, so there can be nothing wrong with the home.
Right. And Paul, this might be a good place for you to chime in with regards to condo communities, because I know they're not all created equal. Like a lot of the times, most of the time when you talk about condos and townhomes, you have the bulk of your stuff covered. For example, your roof, your exterior insurance on the building, paint, maintenance, any of that type of stuff. But there are communities that still have HOA fees, but do not include those things.
Absolutely correct, and Dan is right on. It's often a matter of he'll find an inspector, a qualified inspector, a licensed inspector, will find any number of things wrong, But then it becomes a matter for a buyer, if it's a condo or if it's certain kinds of HOAs or if it's a single-family home even, who is paying for it? Who's going to pay for it now before you buy? Who's going to pay for it later? And when is it going to be fixed later? Because it may not be fixed necessarily right away after you buy it like you think.
And just to be
else.
clear, you're referring to things that are found in the inspection as far as
Right.
like if the AC's broke or any of that stuff. You're not referring to the actual home inspection because that's a buyer paid item. I just wanted to make that clear.
Oh yes. Things found wrong in the inspection, and it's not necessarily for a condo or some HOAs. It may not necessarily be an item attached to the home that is the responsibility of that seller or that owner. And then the fund sometimes begins to figure out who's paying for that and when it's going to be fixed. And then, of course, if you're a buyer, you definitely want to account for that in that discussion before you buy.
And it's pretty safe to say that whether it's a condo or townhome, regardless of what's included and what isn't, pretty much drywall in is always going to be the responsibility of the owner, correct?
Well, that's pretty much true in a condo, and that is usually not true in sometimes when a residence is marketed as a condo, or an insurance agent might call it a condo, or other professionals might just casually call it a condo, when in fact it's not a condo, and the owner is going to be responsible for far more. And these are homeowner associations, and sometimes the units are sold as townhomes. Sometimes they're called villas, and they have various other names. If they're attached units, if they're units attached to each other, they share at least one wall. And the way to know is look at the document.
Look at the legal description. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. If it's a condo, it'll say condominium association. If it's not a condo, or it'll say in the documents whatever the name of the corporation, the association is, it'll say something incorporated, and then it'll say somewhere very early as you start to read condominium.
So,
but if it doesn't say condo, it's not a condo, and you should not. In fact, I advise anybody, don't assume, absolutely not, that you're just going to be responsible for drywall in. It's usually not the case if it's a homeowners association.
So if you're a buyer and you're listening to our show today, Tampa Home Talk, and you're thinking, wow, I was considering buying a condo, but how do I find the information that Paul is talking about? And where you can find the information on the legal description and the documents that he's referring to is public records. So you can search usually either Hillsborough County Property Appraiser. If you're in Pinellas, you can search Pinellas, Pasco, any of those counties. Just search for the county name followed by property appraiser, tax collector, and usually in your legal description, you're going to find that information there. So let's talk about due diligence, because I think that's a huge part that a lot of people miss when they are looking at purchasing a condo, a townhome, anything like that. There's some major things that people should be looking for at the time that they purchase a condo or they're thinking about making an offer. Do you want to share on some of those things, like the top things that a buyer should ask for, whether it's in their due diligence period, say during the inspection, or even before they make an offer?
Well, one recommendation I would make, in addition to those recommendations you just made, Katrina, on where to get a copy of the document, go ahead and just ask the seller for them, or the seller's agent, because they're supposed to give those to you.
They are. What if it's a bank-owned property?
Oh, well, that's when the fund sometimes begins.
Exactly.
And in those cases, you have public records. Definitely have a good title company helping you out to check the title, see if there's any of those problems. And then you're generally not going to give. I'd say most of the time with bank-owned, it's very hard to get documentation, and you don't want to deal with that necessarily. But you should verify things through your title company and public records, so you know exactly what you're buying.
And sometimes they're not the most up-to-date either, because they update those bylaws.
That's right, they do. And sometimes it can be the case where it's been updated but not recorded. It's supposed to be recorded after if documents are amended. Another consideration is if you go to, this may be a little bit over, but if you really want to know what you're buying and make sure that you know what's in the documents, you can, the board president or the management company can always be contacted for assistance in that regard. There may be charges for copies. Definitely ask the seller or the seller's agent to help you, because the management company is going to be often a lot more readily able to help them rather than third parties. If you're a buyer, you're not part of the association, so different rules apply. But that's another place to look to get the latest information, and they have to give you the greatest and latest, or whatever, if it's not greatest information. Regardless, and the management company can sometimes assist, but it is the seller's obligation, and not that of the management company to get you what you're requesting for those documents.
Okay, you're listening to Tampa Home Talk, and we have a lot more information to share on this topic. We're going to dive into this a little bit deeper when we come back after the break. I would encourage you to stick around, because we are going to talk more in depth regarding the budget, which is a huge part of buying a condo or anything in an HOA type related community for that matter, but especially condo townhome. We're going to get into bylaws and elaborate a little bit more. We're also going to talk about construction defects, what happens when you encounter that issue. You're listening to Tampa Home Talk. This is your host, Katrina Madewell, on the Real Estate Radio Network. We'll be back in just a minute. Stick around.
You're buying a house. Congratulations. So while you're worrying about the paperwork, leave the moving part to us. We're Woody & Sons Moving Company, a Florida licensed and insured mover, and we offer same-day written estimates. Plus, no sneaky mileage, stairs, or additional stop fees. All we ask is that you check out our great ratings on Google and Angie's List, then go to woodyandsons.com to learn more. Whether you need a full-service pack and move or some extra hands, at Woody & Sons Moving Company, we move you.
Hi, this is Melissa Rogers, owner of SEC Inspection Services. We're so glad that you're listening today, that we're offering you a special deal. If you're purchasing a home, you can have $50 off your full home inspection. And if you're already a client of ours, we're offering 10% off of any other service that we offer. Just give us a call at 727-786-4663 or visit us on the web at secinspection.com.
Hi, this is Aaron Davis, owner of Hillsborough Title. Hillsborough Title is a local, family-owned title agency here in Tampa Bay. Our service, strength, and knowledge make us different. We've served Tampa Bay area for over 30 years. From Polk County to the Gulf, Pasco to Manatee, Tampa Bay, we've got you covered. Call us at 813-712-8888 or visit us on the web at thebesttitle.com. That's thebesttitle.com.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for rejoining us here this afternoon on Tampa Home Talk. You can catch us here every Thursday and Saturday at 5 p.m. You're on 1340, 1350, and 1400. So our topic today, condos. What you need to know before you ever buy a condo, and what you should do before you think about making an offer on a condo. So if you missed the first part of our show, you'll definitely want to catch it out in its entirety. All of our shows are available via a podcast. We're also across the web at Facebook and Twitter at Tampa Home Talk, tampahometalk.com. So let's pick up where we left off in the first segment. We were talking about how a buyer can get their due diligence started and the things they need to look at with regards to the condo and how they differ, because they're going to differ very much from a single family home or even a townhome for that matter. So can you dive into the budget? Because I think that's a huge part. And you had a great idea there where you said to reach out to the HOA president, because they're going to know everything with regards to, you know, how that community is run, how they're doing on their budget, if there's any special assessments, which are extra fees that can tack on to the new buyer. So a lot of details there that that you should do your due diligence on.
Well, Katrina, no question. It's also that time of year for CAMs like myself. That's what we're working on right now, week in, week out, or day in, day out sometimes with all our clients. And it's...
the budgets?
Budgets, yes, and financial planning, and it can be a lot of fun sometimes, good and bad.
So let's talk about that budget, because I know that in recent years. There's been so much turmoil with non-paid HOA fees that knock everything out of whack. I'm sure you've experienced that as a CAM manager. But the other thing, too, that we're seeing from the financing side is that most of these condos, pretty much all of them, have been removed from the FHA approved list.
Oh, yes. Well, collections can be an adventurous and tricky turf. I help a lot of clients actually improve their revenue situation because none of this works without everybody paying their agreed part. And on the other front...
So let's share on that a little bit more. Let's talk about that, because that's where some of the problems started. And I think people got a little bit of a misconception on condos. They can be good as long as everybody does their part, just like you just mentioned. The problem comes that, those communities need a certain amount of money to run. And when you get 25% or 30% or 50%, and I'm sure you maybe even saw those numbers higher when the market was tanking, if everyone doesn't pay their assessments that lives in there, it affects the rest of the homeowners, the people that are paying.
Absolutely, and it's a discussion I've had with many a client, and the biggest challenge I find, there can be those dire situations where you have half the people not paying. I've only seen one of those in my time. Usually I haven't seen them that bad. Certainly things are a lot better overall than they were during our Great Recession. But on the other hand, when that percentage gets to 15% or even higher, it becomes very difficult, and a lot of projects get delayed, repairs get delayed, and the effects are noticeable by all, particularly the person that needs the repairs. On the flip side,
let's talk about when those numbers get higher. At 15%, you're looking at delayed repairs. But what happens when that number start climbing to 20 or 30% of people are not paying in that association?
You start spiraling and going exponential. I find the challenge is in condos. It's common for there to be, especially this time of year, leak. Then you have your deferred maintenance projects, and all those things get slowed down. Let alone each month's operating bills or any given new, a tree fell down, that type of thing. When you start, those percentages go higher. Things just aren't right, and then everybody, and this is where it really becomes difficult. Everybody gets more emotional about everything. Naturally, I would too if I were affected by that. Every day coming home from work or every day living where I live, and then what becomes challenging at times to resolve the problem, where I've been able to assist clients. A lot of times people will know about personal details associated with some of those situations of folks, especially who haven't paid in months or years. And there can be some very sad stories with regard to that, or it can be someone who just doesn't want to pay or participate for whatever rational or irrational reasons.
Yeah, everybody has their reasons, but specifically speaking about, the person listening that wants to buy, maybe they're an investor, maybe they're looking to own or occupy the property, they want to purchase in a condo community. We're talking about that due diligence. Will you share on special assessments? Because I'm sure that you've seen, if those delinquencies get far enough, they can and will tack on special assessments to the rest of the people that are paying. And they're going to try to collect what they can from the banks, but there's only a certain amount they can go back and collect on.
That's what ends up happening. You get into situations where there's so many collections in the legal process with the assistance of the attorney. I'm always working with an attorney when I work with clients on these matters. The legal process has to wind itself through. It's certainly much faster than it was during the Great Recession with the logjam of cases. All the same, you may have repair needs in the month, 3 months, or 6 months, and actually the board can be put in a position where if they're not able to collect enough soon enough, their next thing is to do a special assessment. There are certain things that cannot be left not maintained that are in part of any condo or actually part of the infrastructure of many of some homeowners associations as well. And that can be that's what no one wants, and that's why working with clients and before buying in, these are things to recognize, but working with clients, getting things early when they're going to go bad, well before they reach that approximate 15% level of delinquencies.
Now, have you seen where some of those condo communities, they had special assessments or they had to increase their HOA fees, and now they've actually come back down because those units have been repurchased by people that are paying those on time? The repairs have been made. The condo itself or community is in better financial shape than it was maybe back in 2008?
In my experience, I've seen I don't see the fees going down much simply because business operating costs, even beyond just collections, even though collections have improved, a lot of business operating costs are up, particularly utilities, insurance. If a community has staff or security or other employees or contractors, regular contractors. So it's not much I'm seeing things, the assessment, everybody wants the assessments to go down, yet everyone wants the same or more services.
Yeah, we've seen some of those things actually get cut out with regards to, manned security gates and that type of stuff because they just can't afford it. So they have to cut what they can cut, and that's one of the things that they can cut. Obviously, you can't cut insurance. You have to have that.
And then in a condo, actually in an HOA as well, that has its own pitfalls when you have to cut certain things. The reason is people buying in have an expectation that they're getting X common elements.
Right.
Right? And, let's say, hey, you take away my pool, or hey, you take away those gates at the front. I paid to live in here in a gated community. Some people like to be in a gated community. And you can get into a whole lot of hot water if a community has to go down that road. And of course, the idea is to work and prevent that. But as a buyer, of course, looking into these types of communities, definitely these are the things to look for. Look at the infrastructure. Look at things that are not being maintained. And then often you can find out through looking at a lot of other information why. Sometimes it's in the plans. Sometimes it's not until next year. Sometimes it's unknown. Or sometimes it's something that, like Katrina just said, it's just not going to be done.
So let's talk about the balance sheet, because I know that's like number one. That would be one of the first things that I would ask for, that income statement, the operating expenses for the current month. I want to see what those financials look like. What are some of the things that a buyer will find in there, and what are some of the red flags they should maybe pay more attention to?
Well, on a balance sheet first, if you see that the community owes money to reserves, it'll be listed as due from operating to reserves or due to reserves, and it'll be listed as a liability near the top of the balance sheet, usually on the left side. And that means the community at some point borrowed from reserves because they ran out of operating funds. It could have been for a legitimate reasons, such as an emergency. There are circumstances where you're allowed to do that, but it has to be a true emergency.
That's what the reserve funds are for, is those emergencies.
Emergencies, well, they're categorized, but sometimes, if it's a dire emergency, a true emergency, I've had a few of those, borrowing occurs, and then it has to be paid back. But otherwise, reserves are supposed to be used for the purpose for which the reserve category was created in a condo and in many an HOA. That's one tell right there. The other item to look for on the income statement is usually on the right side. It'll indicate year to date if they're over or under budget, and you want to look at the categories where it is highly over budget, because that means for whatever reason there wasn't enough money or the assessment wasn't enough to cover.
What's an example of something that would be over budget specifically?
A lot of times irrigation goes over budget. A lot of times, sometimes the utility bills, the way they fluctuate, you'll see those go way over budget or even under budget. Insurance, sometimes they didn't budget enough for insurance. That seems to show up a lot under budget sometimes.
And how do you manage those things as a CAM manager? How do you manage those things to try to keep your current owners paying the same thing or close to the same amount?
Well, it starts with assessing the real needs and making those realistic recommendations to the board. And then later on in the budget exercise, it is that time of year, as we were saying earlier, then it's working with the client to cut here, cut there, because everybody wants to keep that assessment only as much as it needs to be done to sustain the operating expenses. And a lot of people want to avoid an increase. But the increases are, at any given point, in any given year, they're going to be inevitable. And I'd say more in these times. It's downright almost impossible to just do a budget and increase the assessment in a recession. What I found, like Katrina was saying earlier, is then you're faced with massive increases because you've put off the day of reckoning, or you get that magical special assessment that no one likes. So good planning, especially when the times are a little bit better like now, makes for less risk in avoiding those scenarios popping up, and they will pop up. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And
I mean, there's certainly things like that. You know, you got to take the good with the bad. There's some that are managed really well, and you know, you really don't have those issues. The increases are normal, like anything else would increase, like a power bill or a water bill. They're relative to what the current cost of living is. We have to take another quick break. When we come back in just a second, we're going to talk about pending litigation, how that may also affect your decision to purchase in there, how you can find out about it, and then we're also going to talk about once you get to the inspection point, why it's so important to make sure the power's on, the water's on, and all of those things are operating properly. We're going to be back here on Tampa Home Talk in just a minute. Stick around.
Hi, this is Melissa Rogers, owner of SEC Inspection Services. We're so glad that you're listening today, that we're offering you a special deal. If you're purchasing a home, you can have $50 off your full home inspection. And if you're already a client of ours, we're offering 10% off of any other service that we offer. Just give us a call at 727-786-4663 or visit us on the web at secinspection.com.
Hi, this is Aaron Davis, owner of Hillsborough Title. Hillsborough Title is a local family-owned title agency here in Tampa Bay. Our service, strength, and knowledge make us different. We've served Tampa Bay area for over 30 years. From Polk County to the Gulf, Pasco to Manatee, Tampa Bay, we've got you covered. Call us at 813-712-8888 or visit us on the web at thebesttitle.com. That's thebesttitle.com.
You're buying a house. Congratulations. So while you're worrying about the paperwork, leave the moving part to us. We're Woody & Sons Moving Company, a Florida licensed and insured mover, and we offer same-day written estimates. Plus, no sneaky mileage, stairs, or additional stop fees. All we ask is that you check out our great ratings on Google and Angie's List, then go to woodyandsons.com to learn more. Whether you need a full service pack and move or some extra hands, at Woody & Sons Moving Company, we move you.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for rejoining us here today on Tampa Home Talk. You can catch us here every Thursday and Saturday at 5 p.m. If you missed any part of our earlier show today and you're getting in and out of the car, we are talking about condos. And we're talking about if you own a condo or you're thinking about buying a condo or you ever wanted to buy a condo, some of the things you need to know before you do that, because they're going to be quite different than a single family residential home. So our off-air number, in case you'd like to connect with us or any of our guests on the show, SEC Inspections, our show partner, and Paul Carraro, our CAM manager guest of the day, 813-377-2775. Again, this is Katrina Madewell, Tampa Home Talk. Our off-air number, 813-377-2775. You can call us or text us on that number. Okay, so let's dive into a little bit more of the inspection type stuff. I'm going to fast forward and then kind of back up a little bit and zip around. That's how my mind works, right? But let's talk about the inspections and why it's so important to have the utilities on whenever you get an inspection, even if it is a condo, because we see this a lot, right? On bank-owned properties, we see oftentimes even in the realtor notes where the listing agent will leave a comment saying that the buyer can't connect the utilities, and sometimes it's just they can't connect it. They won't let them turn it on in their name. They have the right to do that as the owner, but there's some things the buyer should know about that before maybe pursuing the purchase.
Well, one thing, without the water on, it's pretty hard to check the plumbing without a visual. Most of the plumbing is not seen. So without the plumbing on, how do we know it's getting to the shower? When it gets to the shower, how do we know the shower is functioning properly? Hot's hot, cold's cold, shower pan's not leaking, things that are not visible that you actually need to run the mechanics of it. The electric, the appliances you can't run. The heat and air system is impossible to check. You could check the age of the system and maybe the condition, but you can't see whether or not it's operating properly.
So if you're put in that position, Dan, as an inspector, and someone says, look, I need to get an inspection anyway. I want to buy the unit. They won't let me connect the utilities, but I want to buy it. So you tell me what I have to do to find out as much as I can about the unit, even though we can't test those other mechanics. What percentage of the inspection, like obviously if you can look at everything, they're getting 100% of a full inspection. But if you take away those pieces like the utilities and the power, the water, that type of stuff that you can't turn on, how much of that are you not able to inspect? Like what percentage would you say? And is there any workarounds?
Well, in the percentage wise, it's tough to say. I mean, if there's no power and there's no plumbing, so it depends. Like, what if I can't get up, like in a condo? We're talking condos, correct?
Correct.
Townhomes, you can get in the attic sometimes. Condos, now it's almost 100% I can't inspect the heating and air conditioning system, except for, 90%. I can see what the units look like. Maybe they look new, but I can't tell whether they're blowing cold, so I can't tell if the ductwork is working properly. I could just look at the age and condition of the air handler and the condensing unit.
And so some of the things that you're finding when you have those utilities connected that you wouldn't be able to check without would be like what, holes in the ductwork?
Right, yeah. Sometimes you'll check a register and it won't be blowing cold. So then you'll know, even though I can't physically, I can't put an eye on the ductwork, I can test to see that cold air is blowing through and the strength of the cold air. We find all the time that like a condo, it may be blowing cold air, but all of a sudden it'll be really weak in one room. So all of a sudden you move in, it's July, you come moving in and you go to sit down and have your dinner and you're sweating to death.
Gotcha.
Yeah, even with a newer air unit.
Yes.
Yeah, it looks good. The air unit's new,
But if you got a big hole in it because rat chewed it.
Yeah, and then that could be a lot harder to get to than in a single family home as well.
So what are there elements that you don't inspect based on who manages those elements? So for example, if it's a condo and they're responsible for the roof, are you still looking at those things for the buyer?
Well, I mean, if it's not always. If we're on a second story unit and it's 18 stories, high or whatever, 9 is maybe typical around here on the beach or something. But I will go up on the roof if that's where the heating and air conditioning system is located. That's when you need to know where the money's in the budget. Because
Right.
I'm not going to be inspecting the roof. I'm there to inspect the unit, not the roofing system. So I may go up on the roof, but
Right.
the life expectancy on this roof has
You got to dig into the HOA.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
See what's in their budget. Have you guys encountered any of those condos? And I know we had several of them where like the stucco was literally popping off the walls and there were construction defects. Have you encountered some of those?
Yeah, well, that's when you get into new construction, that's where we've seen Chinese drywall.
Excellent point.
Bad
so
stucco.
going back to condos, brand new.
Brand new.
This is another reason why you need to get an inspection. So just re-elaborate on that one.
Well, I did a townhome not too long ago. I'm not gonna name the location.
Yeah, no
or
names.
anything.
We'll just talk in general.
But yeah, we did. I don't know. I don't deal with the price. I deal with the defects. But it's let's say a $200,000 condo with $100,000 worth of issues. What's the real value of that place? 100.
Right.
And then you have to do the work. So unless you're a general contractor or something like that, that's probably not going to be a fun $100,000 to spend.
What type of construction defects are you guys running into? What do you see?
The stucco is. Stucco is
a big one.
For newer construction, we see shoddy construction all the time, where it's just the person performing the stucco work is not a skilled craftsman, and they did it. And when you don't have proper work, some of your elements will get exposed, and then you can have some problems leading into the home as well.
And, pending litigation, that's another one, too. I mean, they could have pending litigation regarding those things, especially if they're a condo or townhome community. How does that play a part, Paul, in the stuff you guys are seeing?
Well, along the lines Dan just said, the stucco, roofs. I would add also irrigation, which you wouldn't find as an inspector in the common areas. And I would add also various infrastructure. Some of those things don't turn up in for years. But if there's a lot of flooding in certain areas of the community, or if it just doesn't look right and it's in a common area and it's on the pavement, there's a good reason for it usually, and it's usually some kind of defect, whether discovered or undiscovered. But on the lines of pending litigation, sometimes this comes up only after a developer turns over the association to a board. Sometimes it's not discovered for many years.
That can get hairy. There's some communities in Tampa that was turned over, and now they're basically going after the builder for those construction defects and litigation to make them fix it. Where does the litigation type stuff show on the balance sheet, or does it? Does it show as attorney's fees?
You might. That's one good place to look if you see a sudden increase. If there's an increase, especially if you compare budgets from this year to last year, or if you see, let's say they say an association budgeted $4,000 for legal fees, and it's almost five figures. Well,
there's your sign.
It might suggest something's wrong along those lines, or of course maybe they have a lot of receivables, a lot of people in collection.
Yeah, certainly. So you definitely need to ask questions. Ask your HOA managers. I recommend people just sit in a meeting. I mean, a lot of times these associations, they post signs and stuff announcing when their meetings are. Now sometimes you go in there and it's going to be a dogfight and people are yelling. It is what it is, but it's a great place to start and get information, especially if maybe you don't know if you want to pay to get that information yet with regards to the budget. I saw a condo once where I went in to show the property. The whole thing was completely covered in mold on the inside. Have you had to inspect anything like that?
Yeah, we actually did. I did an inspection on a condo, and the guy even was like, I know nothing's going to be wrong. And then when we went in and I looked into where the air handler was, the condensation line from the upstairs unit was dripping into the wall, and it would in the interior of the wall was covered with mold. Yeah, it needed.
And that's some of the things you can't see from the inside.
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky to catch it, for sure.
But I know one I saw, there was literally mold all over the inside of the drywall. Why that would be, I don't know, but it was everywhere.
It could be from somebody upstairs or something. Water. You're going to get mold. There needs to be moisture. So where the moisture's coming from, it could be coming from plumbing, exterior, roof, plumbing from the air conditioning unit because they drip water to the outside. So it could be coming from, it's each case is different. So.
And how do you guys check and test for mold? Is that something specific, something extra, something visual?
Well, there's two different levels of mold. There's one where there's mold present, but you can't see it for the eye, and that takes a test. If I see the level of mold where you could actually visualize it, I don't recommend you test it. Well, yeah. I don't recommend you test it because I could see it.
Right.
If I test it, I mean, you could pay me to test it, that's fine, but I'm going to get a positive result. I've had people said, no, I want you to test it. I mean, probably they may be trying to negotiate some stuff. That's not my forte. But I've tested it, and I said, okay, I'll do it. And it's every time that I've visually seen the mold and I've tested it, it's always come back positive. There can be mold that's hidden that I can't see that can only be noticed by having a test done.
Are you guys still seeing Chinese drywall on the new stuff and the new condos? You seen some of that still linger?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Every month.
Great information. And you just telling from the markings, right, on the back of the wall? The back of the drywall?
Sometimes you'll just see we're seeing Chinese drywall that it's not like where you can come in and you smell it. All of a sudden you'll start noticing some the copper's getting a little bit corroded. It's less, it has a less of a effect. It's contaminated, but a guy that I did the inspection for, it's like being a little bit pregnant. You either have it or you don't. Do you want to live in a house with with minor Chinese drywall? I don't.
So
I
would
want
you
mine
say
to be
that's
zero.
like one piece? Is a piece of drywall?
No. It's just that the levels of contamination are on the lower end, not on the higher end. Where I've been in homes where I walked in and your eyes water, and but I've been in homes like I just inspected to where we had it tested. We saw evidence of it. It said it was Chinese, and we had it tested, and it came back positive, barely over the amount. But once again,
Yeah, and so you guys can test that in-house? You have to send that off still to a lab?
Well, I cut a piece out. I physically have to cut a piece out and send it to a lab.
Which that gets into a whole other hairy part for as far as the contract is concerned. So
right, yeah, I usually want permission. I need to get permission from the seller before that happens. Yes,
absolutely. You're listening to Tampa Home Talk here with your host Katrina Madewell. Also have our guest in studio today, Paul Carraro with International Realty Plus of Tampa Bay, and our show partners, fabulous SEC Inspection Services with Melissa Rogers, been a little bit quiet today in studio, and Dan Menikheim. But we'll be back in just a minute. We're going to go over a few more of those FAQs that you need to know about condos. Stick around. We'll be back in a minute for the last part of our show.
Hi, this is Aaron Davis, owner of Hillsborough Title. Hillsborough Title is a local family-owned title agency here in Tampa Bay. Our service, strength, and knowledge make us different. We've served Tampa Bay area for over 30 years. From Polk County to the Gulf, Pasco to Manatee, Tampa Bay, we've got you covered. Call us at 813-712-8888 or visit us on the web at thebesttitle.com. That's thebesttitle.com.
You're buying a house. Congratulations. So while you're worrying about the paperwork, leave the moving part to us. We're Woody & Sons Moving Company, a Florida licensed and insured mover, and we offer same-day written estimates. Plus, no sneaky mileage, stairs, or additional stop fees. All we ask is that you check out our great ratings on Google and Angie's List, then go to woodyandsons.com to learn more. Whether you need a full-service pack and move or some extra hands, at Woody & Sons Moving Company, we move you.
Hi, this is Melissa Rogers, owner of SEC Inspection Services. We're so glad that you're listening today, that we're offering you a special deal. If you're purchasing a home, you can have $50 off your full home inspection. And if you're already a client of ours, we're offering 10% off of any other service that we offer. Just give us a call at 727-786-4663 or visit us on the web at secinspection.com.
Welcome back. You are listening to Tampa Home Talk. I'm your host, Katrina Madewell, on the Real Estate Radio Network. In studio today, we have our show partners, SEC Inspection Services, with Melissa Rogers and Dan Menikheim. Also have our calling guest today, Paul Carraro, with International Realty Plus Tampa Bay, CAM Manager, Community Association Management. So, last things, our topic today, in case you're just joining us, is condos. So if you missed any part of today's show, you'll really want to check it out in its entirety because we had some great information that we shared with you today. If you're ever thinking about buying a condo, you own a condo, you want to sell a condo, any of that type of stuff, certainly you can reach out to us, but definitely check out the show in its entirety. You can find us across the web at Tampa Home Talk. Just search Facebook, Twitter, all the above, YouTube at tampahometalk.com. Our off-air number, 813-377-2775. Again, you can call us or text us at 813-377-2775. And we'll be happy to put you in touch with any of our guests on the show and, of course, our show partners. So let's talk about one of the things that you had on your list, Paul, was a lot of these frequently asked questions that you get. And one of them was when people advertise low maintenance or maintenance-free communities, that includes everything, right?
Oh, yeah, of course. No, of course not.
You want to elaborate on that?
Yes. In the condos we were talking earlier in the show, typically drywall in is the association's responsibility. The owner's responsible for wall coverings, carpeting, tile, windows,
personal items,
fixtures, interior fixtures, and so forth. Obviously, the documents will specify anything otherwise. Generally, that's what you'll find. And sometimes, folks will have a perception that it's a condo community and it may have some lavish amenities, but somehow that it is a hotel. And there are some condo hotels out there actually that cover more things like those that I named. But there's this perception that somehow I just move in and I don't have to do anything to take care if anything goes wrong. If my sink starts leaking, it's not my problem. So you might get that in a resort community and definitely pay a premium in assessment for that type of service, but you're not going to get that in a regular condo where if my starts leaking or if my bathtub's leaking.
Paul, some of the big things that you would see in a low or no maintenance community compared to, say, a regular condo, they're going to take care of, for example, all the grass, all the lawn, all the shrubbery, all the hedges.
Correct. All the exterior, the roof, often when a condo, the roof, the paving, the painting, the stucco. Sometimes in some of the homeowner associations, some of those townhomes, sometimes they take care of some of those things. Sometimes the responsibilities are shared, meaning they only do it so often and the rest is yours. So be very mindful how often you're going to be taking care of things, and go into these purchases with, what do I really have to do to take care of my new home, as opposed to, I'm just going to move in and it's going to be like a hotel. It doesn't work that way.
The other thing, too, and this applies for not only condos, but single-family homes, townhomes, when there is a condo or an HOA, rather, where there's an additional fee for the community or the area, many times they require association approval.
Correct. If you're an HOA and you make an exterior alteration, many HOAs, in fact, most that I run into anymore, require some type of approval by what's often called an architectural committee or a modification committee.
Right.
And you get that form from a management company. But, of course, they may be very restrictive as far as what they will allow you to do. And that's usually noted in the documents as far as what's prohibited. Like, for example, no PVC fences, no chain link fences. Fences must be 6 feet, and on and on and on. All kinds of particular things.
I know one of the ones we have that's closing escrow, they have like 5 colors to pick from as far as painting the exterior. But, those rules are in place so that your neighbor doesn't paint their house purple or doesn't paint their house something that would be offensive to 90% of the population. And so talk about the keys being delayed sometimes for those things.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Well, but people, a lot of times, they'll actually have their keys delayed. Like, they closed escrow, they sent in their money, they signed all their paperwork, yet they still can't have the keys. They want access, to the pool and that kind of stuff.
That can come up. Well, the community must grant you access to the community to get in and out. They must grant you that. It doesn't have to necessarily be in a gate directory, but they have to give you the means to enter, even if it's gated, with a code or something, and also on foot, in and out. That can't be restricted, but everything else needs to be cleared up after you buy. If it's not cleared up with the what's owed, or if there's something after you buy, what'll happen? There is no closing fairy that goes from the title company and tells the HOA, we have new owners. There's a process that takes weeks, and if you're buying a foreclosure or something that was bank owned or whatever it was, sometimes even months before that information transfers to the HOA, all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, and those updates can be made. And you may find, yes, you'll be waiting a month to get your pool key.
And if you're lucky and you have a good agent like me, we're going to be checking into those things in advance. Paul,
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for chiming in today on the show. Dan, Melissa, a little bit quiet today.
I was letting him shine.
In the studio, nonetheless. Thank you. Our show partners with SEC Inspection Services do a fabulous, fabulous job. If you're already under contract to buy a home and we're not representing you, still want to call SEC Inspection Services. They have a special offer for you for listening to Tampa Home Talk. Just mention the show. Thank you so much for joining us this week. We're here every Thursday and Saturday. You can catch the whole show in its entirety every Thursday and Saturday at 5 p.m. and across the web via a podcast. 813-377-2775. Again, our off-air number, call or text, 813-377-2775. Thanks so much for joining us this week. We are out.